1995, a child is born. Her name, Anna Lindiwe Press Talbot. I am that child. I am Anna, a name derived from the Bible meaning grace. And born in 1995, grace seems an appropriate celebration of the reprieve and freedom the nation felt. I am Lindiwe, the long-awaited child. My parents, both working at the YMCA at the time, a student residence in inner city Durban, had a community anticipating my long-awaited arrival of their firstborn, Anna Lindiwe. I am oppressed. My mother's maiden name given to me to ensure the longevity of the female side of our family. And I am a Talbot, a name that to me is associated with a deep commitment to change and justice that my parents and grandparents embodied. I am a person with a history, with an origin, and I am also an engaged citizen. All our personal histories and lived experiences play influential roles in who and what we are in our lives. And these sketches memorialize selected moments of my life that were pivotal to my becoming and understanding of what it is to be an engaged citizen. Empathize with me for a minute. 2003, I am 8 years old. Sitting in a meeting with a bunch of teenagers trying to discuss ways that we can connect with young children all addicted to glue. This was my reality. Growing up in inner city Durban, my parents at the time, running the YMCA, were trying to address these community issues. And so my mum began Park Watch, an initiative to allow children to play safely in the park across the road. I was readily accepted as a leader in the program, but had no idea what role I could actually play as a young child. The leadership team was mostly teenagers, and there I was, a young 8-year-old. I took my responsibility really seriously. With my yellow vest, I'd waddle over to the park every afternoon after finishing my homework. And I would do little patrols. I would climb to the highest platform to help children with the fireman's pole where other adults couldn't reach. But most of all, my ability to connect with young children my age was a pivotal shift in how the program ran. Young children often are the key to programs and unlocking programs for what children need. Children know children best. Realizing this, what I had to say was really taken seriously, and this was the first experience of being the youngest at the table where I was taken seriously. My ideas were incorporated into the development and the progress of the program. This was the first time I'd really experienced two pivotal moments. First is my community engagement and my responsibility to my community. And the second was my confronting of my privilege. Two very important memories. Two pivotal memories that shaped how I think and how I enact in the world. Watinti bafazi, watinti bakoto. You strike a woman, you strike a rock. Shortly after the turn of the millennium, my family moved to Pretoria. One of the first stark memories I have of living in Pretoria was participating in the Women's Day March to the Union buildings and marching along tens of thousands of women. I noticed in that moment, being one of the youngest, alongside my younger sister, that as a woman I had a responsibility to have my voice heard on behalf of myself, but more on behalf of my communities. And from a young age, that responsibility for social justice has lived with me. Noticing so many women around me marching that day made a noticeable impact in my life. You strike a woman, you strike a rock. In the beginning, a creation story retold by Steve Turner. In the beginning, God said world, and the world spun around. 2005, and young Anna has been allowed to run her first solo Sunday school class. The elation of a young teacher being able to run a full lesson by herself. For many, the church is a space of community building, an important space for community development. It is through institutions like the church that we begin to understand the networks that work in our communities. For me, I understood this from a young age, that people could collect in certain spaces, and it's through these places and the spaces that people find together that we're able to make change. For me, that change came in the churches I decided to go to, and the things that I decided to do at those churches that created experiences for dialogue, for learning, and for sharing experiences across different classes and socioeconomic statuses. These were important early learning experiences that I'm glad as a young child I was given the freedom to learn. On my honour, I promise that I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country and to keep the Scout law at all times. There are two important things I'd like you to notice in that promise. First is to do my duty to my country, and the second is to keep the Scout law at all times. These two things are the foundations of the Scout movement, the values and the principles of what it means to do good for the common good. I've been in the Scout movement for more than 20 years, and it's through these values and principles and the camaraderie shared amongst youth my age that I've been able to experience many wonderful things in terms of becoming an engaged citizen. The way the Scout movement is structured is to foster learning by doing and including young people as leaders in the organisation. For this reason, there are many experiences I could share about how I was the youngest at the table. One pivotal moment marked my Scouting experience, for it led me to a journey of advocacy, of protest art, of many different exploratory experiences as a young teenager. It was being nominated the first female of an important Scout leadership camp. Being that leader was tough. It was grueling, a 10-day leadership camp out in the bush with very minimal resources. But it was a privilege to be acknowledged as the first woman that could accept that role and that could take on that role. But it did not come without its challenges. At that very young age, I still was confronted with the sexism and challenges that an older woman may have. And so it was from there that I again noticed my responsibility as a woman to not only defend myself, but for my community around me. And it is in those pivotal moments that I have been able to make an impact, a lasting impact, in many Scout groups and many young women's lives in the Scout movement. 2014, my first year at Rhodes University, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I arrived at Olive Schreiner Residence ready to start my degree in fine art and music. Now, how on earth does a fine artist and musician end up in community engagement? Well, the idea was to start a school that disrupted the status quo of education in South Africa, trying to change the system with innovative and creative methodologies. While this in many senses could still be the dream, that has emerged and evolved into something different. Rhodes University was the first place that I was explicitly taught the values and principles of community engagement and experienced a community development methodology, asset-based community development. These lessons and teachings were incorporated into a passion project. The Scout group that I started with a bunch of friends from Durban allowed me to experiment not only with innovative education systems, but also with these new principles and values around community development. The explicit education of these methods and methodologies around community engagement and community development were pivotal in my journey to becoming an engaged citizen. And the mantras that were lived and embodied by the staff and the communities that surrounded me allowed me to engage in a very deep and new way with the communities I existed in. 2017, my first year out of university. I'm 22 years old and I've landed my first job at Rhodes University Community Engagement. The year prior, I was awarded Student Volunteer of the Year, a distinguished award at the university that is much coveted, for it exemplifies what student volunteerism should be, and the lessons learned and the relationships being formed between community partners and students. Little did I know that 5 years on, I'd be creating those experiences for other students. Still the youngest in the office, this creates a wonderful opportunity for me to be able to expand and grow in the space. Being planted in a city like Makanda gives you opportunities to experiment and explore, create relationships and networks, and being planted in an academic environment pushes you beyond your boundaries to write, to research, to do community engagement. But most of all, it's been a profound impact in my life as a young, early career practitioner to be understood, to be taken seriously, and to work with, not for, a division aimed at promoting transformation in our city. The deep respect and trust that I've experienced in this workplace environment has had a knock-on effect for my students. It is how I treat them in the management of our programs, with deep respect and trust, for they really are the lifeblood of our programs. It is through them that the impact that I'm able to make is realized. So here I am, a 26-year-old, with a wealth of experiences and moments that have shaped my life and who I am today. And as my mum so fondly reminds me, life will continue to unfold with purpose and in its own time with many more experiences. I too am an engaged citizen. I am an engaged citizen only because of the people and the communities around me. Ubuntu. I am because you are. And often in community engagement, I have shunned the idea of giving back, and I've banned it from my and my students' vocabulary. Its charitable connotations and its dependence that it implies is incongruent with my lived experiences of community development and community building. But out of community comes responsibility. To give back implies that you've come from so much richness and have been so nourished with wisdom and resources and people around you that you have enough to give and should give fully. A depth of reciprocity that only those who have walked a journey of becoming an engaged citizen will understand. It is this nuanced and delicate understanding of giving back that has helped me understand what it means to be an engaged citizen, deeply invested in extending and sharing my experiences with my communities. So I share my stories here with deep gratitude for the trust of many different communities, for allowing me to be the youngest voice at the table, which is not the experience of most young people. Through this, I've been given the space to make the impact and change I want to see in the world. I am an engaged citizen.